Welcome to this video. My name is Pedro Rodrigues Ribeiro. I'm a psychologist from Portugal. In this video, I would like to introduce to you Milton H Erickson as a key figure in the field of hypnosis and psychotherapy. Like all of these videos, it's not a biographical one. It's not really extended and in detail about the life and work of Milton Erickson. If you would like that, I have other videos in my channel where I describe the life and work of Milton Erickson in detail. Those videos are in Portuguese and also in English. So please watch them if you would like to know more about Milton Erickson. Milton Erickson was an American psychiatrist who was born in 1901 and died in 1981. He is considered the father of modern hypnosis because of the way that he integrated hypnosis in this psychotherapeutic approach. Milton Erickson is a very respectful but also polemical figure in the field of psychotherapy, but also in the field of hypnosis. Although he is, one can criticize some things that Milton Erickson did or said. In my opinion, it's irrefutable the importance of Milton Erickson, as much as if we think about it, by criticizing or argue from a different point of view, we can evolve our field and also our notions and concepts about psychotherapy, but also hypnosis. So, the first formal introduction that Milton Erickson had with the field of hypnosis was in lectures and some formal training by Clark Hall. Clark Hall was a very well-known behaviorist, but also one of the first researchers in the field of hypnosis. The books and the works and the research work of Hall really inspired all the research that was done in the field of hypnosis, and also is in nowadays. So we have to thank Clark Hall for his first step in doing some research in the field of hypnosis. That's why hypnosis really evolved in a research state. So Milton Erickson wasn't very thrilled or didn't agree with all of the notions and all of the concepts that Clark Hall exposed. In that time, what Clark Hall exposed was the social cognitive notions of hypnosis as a non-state process, and also the most important thing that Clark Hall tried to establish is that not everyone could be hypnotized, and also not everyone could be hypnotized in the same depth, something that Milton Erickson disagreed with. So Milton Erickson would work and train with everyone that Clark Hall couldn't hypnotize, and he did hypnotize them to prove Clark Hall wrong. So one of the characteristics of Milton Erickson as a person and as a therapist and as a physician was that he was in most ways, he was trying to prove people wrong, but also try to validate his own thinking and his concepts of therapy. Like most psychiatrists, excuse me, at that time, the therapeutic approach that Milton Erickson was exposed to initially was psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis was a great influence in psychiatry in those days, although a lot of new thinking and a lot of new models were starting to develop. Like, for example, the existential approaches is client-centered therapy from Rogers, also some of the cognitive thinking of Beck and Ellis, but psychoanalysis was a preponderant approach in psychiatric training. Although Milton Erickson was not too thrilled about the notions of the unconscious, the Freudian notions of the unconscious, and as a therapist, Milton Erickson respected the individuality and the honesty and the all the characteristics of the client as a unique person. So it's a very humanistic stance, a stance of validation, of empathy, and recognizing that everyone has his resources and his learnings, but also everyone is different. So what is needed for one person, it's necessarily different from other one. It establish a differential way of working with the different patients. So in that sense, Erickson did formulate his way of thinking and doing psychotherapy. As I mentioned it, Erickson wasn't in agreement with the Freudian notion of the unconscious. For Erickson, the unconscious mind was a metaphor for a reservoir of knowledge and resources that everyone has, but at some time, at some times, or at some point in life, those resources are blocked by barriers or diseases or really something that doesn't permit the person to get those resources from within. So in that sense, the unconscious mind was a field of resources that could be explored, and hypnosis was a way to retrieve and to work those resources. Also, Erickson would do some things that nowadays are very questionable in terms of ethics and moral, such as paradoxical interventions, with he prescribed more of the symptoms as a way to the person at one point fed up with the diseases and the symptoms and simply changed. But it represents a risk for certain diagnoses and pathologies. Also, Erickson would expose his family as a way of working with the patient. For example, he utilized his family and his personal history to try to teach someone a lesson as a new possibility for a different view in life. And in that sense, nowadays, it's very questionable to do that. The A lot of Ericksonians say that the notion of the Erickson's notion of family therapy is doing therapy with his family. So you get the point. Um, so in reality, Erickson did utilize hypnosis in psychotherapy, but not always. Um, that said, whenever Milton Erickson tried to communicate, to try to send a message to the patient, he would do that in a hypnotic way by telling stories, metaphors, analogies, or simply doing some hypnotic language patterns. So really, Erickson didn't utilize formal hypnosis always, but he did utilize concepts from hypnosis in his therapy work. In that sense, Erickson was the one that was responsible to bring hypnosis into psychotherapy in the modern times. Um, the way that Erickson worked and also his ideas about psychotherapy generated a lot of different approaches to psychotherapy, such as the solution-focused approach, the really strengths therapy approach, a lot of concepts from family therapy, the research group from Palo Alto, the works of Paul Watzlawick, Richard Fisk, John Weekland, and also the great influences that he had on Jay Haley, but also in some of the concepts from Gregory Bateson, the famous anthropologist. So Erickson did influence a lot of people, and also the new ways of doing and really thinking about therapy. He was considered one of the fathers of movement called strategic therapy, in the sense that the therapist utilized whatever he was, whatever it existed, uh, his characteristics, the characteristics of the patient, the environment, something that would boost the efficacy of the therapy. But also, Erickson realized that psychotherapy was a tailoring process, in the sense that uh, everyone is different, so we have to adjust our way of doing therapy in terms of the patient's characteristics. So, what Erickson generated was really the Ericksonian approach to psychotherapy and hypnosis. The downside of it is that Erickson didn't formulate it a specific model with specific phases, and his work was never scientifically tested, research based. So, really, the Ericksonian approach is an interpretation of what Milton Erickson did in hypnosis and psychotherapy. That interpretation was created by his close students or formal students, like, for example, Ernest Rossi, Jeffrey Zeig, Bill O'Halloran, Brent Gary, and a lot of people. As I said, Erickson did influenced some ideas of of family therapy, mostly the work of Jay Haley, but also some of the interactions with Virginia Satir, Salvador Michunin, and also Chloe Medanes, with Medanes with Haley created new ways of thinking and doing family therapy. So, in that sense, Erickson was a great inspiration for all of those approaches and all of those ways of thinking and doing psychotherapy. Nowadays, Ericksonian hypnosis, especially Ericksonian hypnosis, is a very popular approach and a popular way of learning hypnosis. Also, a lot of courses and a lot of people present themselves as Ericksonians. However, when we study their work and their approach to hypnosis and psychotherapy, the only Ericksonian thing that they do is to utilize indirect suggestions, indirect hypnotic language patterns. That is truly a trademark of the Ericksonian approach, but is one aspect. It's a very limited aspect of someone to present themselves as Ericksonian. So nowadays we have the Milton H Erickson Foundation, which is a non-profit organization created by Jeffrey Zeig as a way of honoring the work and life of Milton Erickson, but also to continue to teach and to show the ideas and the way of the Ericksonian approach to psychotherapy and hypnosis. The foundation is responsible for creating a lot of congress, such as the evolution of psychotherapy, but also meetings in family therapy. And recently we saw the last truly Ericksonian Congress organized by the foundation. Also, I would mention that Erickson created what is called ASH, the American Society of Clinical Hypnosis. And through ASH, there is also a scientific publication about hypnosis in a qualitative sense, because the Ericksonian approach is not suitable for quantitative research, because if one has to tailor every approach to different people, it's hard to make a standard manualized way of doing psychotherapy. So it's very hard to get some research data from that approach. Notwithstanding, with all the criticisms that Erickson has, and one may do those criticisms, I think, in my opinion, and also in the opinion of a lot of people, it's indisputable the importance that Milton Erickson had in the field of hypnosis and also in the field of psychotherapy. Because if one really thinks about it, Erickson was one of the first integrative therapists that existed. I think that Erickson didn't have the recognition that he deserved, mostly because of his work with hypnosis, but also because his approach was not manualized, was not evidence-based. In that sense, it's really hard to officially recognize Erickson as an integrative therapist, but truly he was. So, I would like to thank your time and to thank you for listening and seeing this video. If you like this content, please subscribe and share. I would like to thank you, to wish you a good weekend, and be safe. See you next time.